All right, it's September 6th. It's about 50 degrees outside. It's more of the same today. I got to continue to peel all these logs. I have maybe 8 or 9 logs peeled already, and I'm going to just keep peeling and keep cutting them down until I have enough. There's snow up on the mountains. It's winter for us is just right around the corner. Fall is pretty short. I would be surprised if I get a full month of work without snow, but if I work on a little every day, I could probably get a lot done this month. Still need to work on clearing out the actual site, and then I'm trying to figure out what type of foundation I want to put these logs on. I could go old school, go directly to the ground and have ground contact, or I could, get some large stones and build it on top of some rocks. And then if I wanted to, I could also dig down, make some pillars, and then build on top of that. Anyway, I said it's got more logs to peel, so just follow along if you'd like. Remember as a kid, my mom always talked about building a log cabin one day. Remember, we had a book, and I don't remember what the name was, but it's a book about building a log cabin. And I feel like we probably read it a couple times, or probably more than that, growing up. Building a cabin was definitely something that I wanted to do growing up. But the problem was, where I lived in Missouri, about the only options we had would be oak or cedar. And there's some oak cabins that were a couple hundred years old. So it's definitely a possibility to use oak. And anytime I ever saw somebody use cedar, it also worked, but the cedar settled and did weird things. When I come to Alaska, I knew that I was going to build one eventually, but I didn't quite know where or how. I knew that we had a little bit of spruce on our property, that we could maybe build a small one. But anytime I looked up anything about building log cabins, they were always huge. I guess what finally changed my mind about building the log cabin in our property here with these smaller spruce trees was that Dick Prinicky, Dick Prinicky's kind of like a legend here in Alaska. In the 70s, he flew out to Twin Lakes, Alaska, homesteaded a little plot of land, built a small 12 by 16 foot cabin using fairly small spruce trees, similar to what I'm using. And he lived there for over 30 years. He trapped, hiked around, made movies. But I figured if he could use the small logs and live there full time, there's no reason why I couldn't build a similar style cabin using approximately the same size logs, and just to have it here on my property so that my kids can play and that we can have a good experience building it. So when I thought about that more and more, and he has a book composed of a lot of his journal entries over the first year or two, and then there's a few other documentaries that they made over the years about him, and they're very interesting in my opinion. So after watching those multiple times, I just decided one day I woke up and I figured I would just give it a shot. So here I am. Right now this is kind of a boring process because I'm just peeling logs today. I woke up, it was about, I think it was like 39 degrees. It's currently says it's about 43. It might be a little colder where I live also, just because we live in a valley. Cold air settles. But today I'm working on peeling logs, cutting down some logs. I'm going to be working on a dead spruce tree that I cut down that was killed by the spruce bark beetles. Clearing the limbs, I could tell it's a lot harder because obviously it's been dead and dried out. So I'm curious how much more difficult it's going to be to process and peel this log. So that's what we're working on. Spent some time to sharpen my tools so that I'm not fighting with it so much, and we'll see how it is. Wonder if beveled down is gonna be better. Oh, not really. Here's probably the best example I've had to show what's happening with the spruce bark beetles in these trees. First of all, you can see that these have holes in them where my thumb is. That's from the spruce bark beetle burrowing in, and then you can see there's evidence of the beetles underneath the bark. So we got these right here. They just go through there and they eat the sap bark, or the sap wood underneath the bark, and it just kills the tree. And this is much harder because it's dead. Well, I'm dealing with a couple things are obvious now, but I didn't think about when I first started. Obviously, these trees that are dead are a lot harder. If you've ever dealt with or worked with wood before, that's something that's pretty obvious. But what I wasn't thinking about was how hard this sap is. The sap's like hitting a rock, and it's making my blade get dull a lot quicker than it normally is. So I'm having to stop and frequently sharpen a lot more than I had to with the green spruce. Well, I was getting annoyed with the bark, having to get through the bark first. So I know that I think they're called the spud knife, and I'm probably making that up, I don't know. But I have this that we use as an ice chipper whenever snows a bunch and turns into ice. All I did was cut a bevel on it, and it's working pretty well. Just to get some of the loose bark off so that I'm saving my back a little bit. Yeah, it's working pretty well. I guess it's not probably called a spud knife. I think it has to do with potatoes. I don't know. Well, I just did a whole bit explaining what I'm going to do and found out my camera wasn't on. So here we go again. Basically, I spent the better part of a morning peeling and debarking one large spruce tree that was dead. It took a tremendous amount of time compared to a living one. Ultimately, it's a great log, and I'm happy with it. It'll probably be like my my roof peak, or what's that called? Ridge log for my cabin. I cut it 20 foot long. So I'll have a couple feet of overhang or I'll let it go all the way out and have like 4 feet of overhang over the front porch, which would probably be better. Now what I'm doing is I'm gonna get all these trees that are here on the ground and I'm gonna get them elevated. I cut some of these dead spruce that are too short to use for actual logs, or they're too far gone, or whatever the case is, and I'm gonna set them perpendicular to my logs that I'm using to build with. Get the logs off the ground, it'll get space for the air to come in and help dry them out, and whenever the snow covers them and then it melts this next spring, if they're on the ground, they'll freeze to the ground, and I'll have to wait a lot longer, and it's just ultimately it's more beneficial that I get them off the ground. I have to admit I'm tired today. It's only about 2 o'clock. Started working about 10, so I'm not it's definitely not a full day yet, but I'm pretty tired. This log is my ridge log. It is, or at least right now it is. I might find a better one later, but it was totally dead, and so it was the hardest one I have stripped yet of bark. These ones that are living, when I cut them down, have been a lot easier to separate the moisture, or sorry, to separate the bark off. You can see just with an axe I can get the bark off fairly easy, but then this one you got to really shave it off. So anyways, it's taking a lot more effort. I got them stacked up at least, so that makes me feel a lot better. So every time it rains or when it starts snowing, I'm not so concerned about them anymore. I have more logs that I need to cut. I have more logs I need to strip, but I got to keep cleaning up this mess, keep on working, and hopefully by the time it snows hard, I'll have all my trees cut. I was hoping that I was going to get to work on it this winter, but these logs are just too wet. It'll be probably something that I start again, or that I actually start building next spring. So